needs.
It's showtime.
Now, back to the Kim Pagano Show on KVTA.
Welcome back, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us here. I do want to remind you of our 6 and our 7 o'clock show, and also we are on dynamictalkradio.com. You can listen there all the way across the world, and again, we are talking about our recovery show right here. We got Cher Gaba.
Hello.
How are you? We got Rob Henley. How are you?
It's Rob Hanley.
Hanley.
Terrific.
Oh, God. Okay, there you go. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, just
That's
wanted to make sure I
thank
corrected
you. I
it.
appreciate it. And Tom Spence. And our next guest is Kyle Simon. And Kyle, are you there?
I am.
Welcome.
Thanks
welcome.
for having me.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how this relates to cake and the movie.
Sure. So I represent the Center for Lawful Access and Abuse Deterrence, and we're a nonprofit organization that has a dual mission of reducing prescription drug abuse and making sure people have legitimate access to these medications. So this movie, Cake, obviously about a woman who is in chronic pain and becomes addicted. This is definitely something that highlights the prescription drug abuse epidemic that the country's in the midst of.
Wow. And how big a problem are we looking at? And Rob, you can even talk to us about that.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
I want to hear more.
Sure. Sorry about that. So yeah, just to let you know, the scope of this issue, it's actually in 2012, about 22,000 Americans died from prescription drug-related overdoses.
Wow, that's huge.
So
Yeah.
tell me about the movie a little bit, how it portrays, explain just a little bit what we might expect, Rob, or excuse me, Kyle.
Sure. So in the movie, Jennifer Aniston's character is in a car accident. It claims her son's life. She is actually in chronic pain. Afterwards, she is bruised and scarred and unable to even sit in a chair in her car. She has to lay back and have a housekeeper take her from A to B. But essentially, it comes down to the fact that she's in a chronic pain support group. Although she is addicted to medications, she exhibits some of the things people see whenever people do become addicted and have substance use disorders. So she's doctor shopping. She actually crosses into Mexico and gets medications, these prescription opioids that she's not able to get from a physician and her physician. But she is basically exhibiting erratic behavior. There's delusions, hallucinations. She even contemplates suicide throughout. So it does show
So
that
it touches
these
mental health
medications-
issues as well.
Yeah, it really does highlight that these medications can be life-saving when they're appropriately prescribed and taken, but if not, they can be deadly. And she is headed that way in the movie.
Kyle, and I'm sure, Rob, you can probably attest to this too, is doctors are just giving it out freely, right? And that's where, I mean, are they asking any questions? Have you ever had a drug problem, or are they asking any of those? Or is it just, is this like legal?
I'm not aware of it at all. This is to jump in. I'm not aware of that at all. That they'll say, "Are you addicted?" or "Have you had a problem in the past?" But it's not just doctors. It's dentists and all kinds of even minor surgery that you would have because, particularly in the United States, God forbid that would be in pain at all. So the first thing that they want to do is treat that. How do you treat it? Well, with Oxycontin or Vicodin or some other kind of opiates, and that's how you have, soccer moms and things like that becoming addicted. And what happens? I'd be really interested to see this movie. I love Jennifer Aniston. See her in a serious role like that. It's happening all the time.
It goes to show how much in the forefront this is, huh, Rob?
Tremendously. Or even, it bleeds down. What about the teenager that they've learned about Oxy or something like that from their friends, and they find out, oh, mom's got that, and then they start, taking pills or stealing them and things like that. This is how, again, it comes back to my whole thing. I live in the suburbs. How was my kid addicted to heroin?
Exactly. Kyle, I want to ask you, so is that why prescription drugs abuse is such a big problem in the United States?
Well, it began with there being too loose of prescribing standards. So we're now seeing at the state level where legislators and regulators are requiring more continuing education for practitioners healthcare practitioners around the prescribing of these medications, because they were, for instance, in Florida, just 4 or 5 years ago, they had these pain clinics that were essentially pill mills where someone could go into this office and leave after seeing a doctor with a bottle of medications that they may or may not have actually needed. And so it was the number one state. It was the pill mill capital of America. It was Florida's nickname for a while there. But after implementing these standards, they closed down most of those pill mills. And now with these safer guidelines out there and more thorough communication on the patient side with the practitioner, we are seeing these overdose deaths actually level off, and that has happened as of 2012. They've finally started reversing.
Yeah. So what are some proactive ways to escape depression and anxiety without the use of prescription medications?
I couldn't speak to that necessarily as someone who's not a mental health professional, but I definitely would recommend that if people do need these, because these medications do serve a purpose. The Institute of Medicine had a report that showed 100 million Americans, or 1 in 3 adults, actually has chronic pain. And so these medications do allow people to live healthy, productive, and fulfilling lives when they're taken normally. But it's important that if someone is taking these medications, that they're frequently visiting their physician, communicating any issues with them. And on the physician side, they can actually do things like therapeutic urine drug testing to see if these drugs are being diverted or misused and people are developing disorders. So, and then another thing one of your guests spoke to was just making sure that kids don't get a hold of these things. That's definitely an issue, particularly with stimulants around studying for tests and things like that, where they think these aren't harmful medications if taken not in an improper way. But yeah, like you were saying, it's important that grandparents lock their medicine cabinets, that they make sure they don't get into the wrong hands and become addiction.
Right. No, so true.
And what do you notice of the people coming into SOBA, Rob? Are they, mostly young adults? Is it the housewife? Is it?
No, they're mostly young adults. I mean, I can't really say, well, this is what the main problem is in the U.S. or this just happens to be who comes to SOBA, but this isn't for kids in high school and things like that. It's generally for it's young adults. Maybe you're 18, 19, 22, 23. You're out of college or something like that. That's who before, when I was a kid, it was let's go out and get some beer, and now they can get heroin and opiates and stuff easier than they can get beer. And I was talking to somebody the other day, and they said it's a bigger epidemic than it was like back in the 70s, and it's bigger than it's ever been.
Now,
so,
what about the case with the marijuana being legal at in different parts of the world?
Yeah.
How does that help us or hurt us?
Well, we say it's a gateway drug. I mean,
right.
What are your thoughts on that, Kyle or Rob?
Well, I would say specifically in the movie Cake, Jennifer Aniston's character does smoke marijuana. It's an interesting thing, especially with the heroin thing that Rob brought up, this evolution of the prescription drug abuse epidemic. People are, in some cases, with the access issues, because they have got so restrictive in some places where people can't get these medications for pain, or that they become addicted and they can't get the medications from whatever source they were using. They're actually switching to these more illicit drugs, and that's definitely an issue. But the prescription drug abuse epidemic is something that can affect anybody. It's any demographic, any part of the country, any age, ethnicity. It doesn't discriminate. So making sure that we're reducing that kind of substance use before people can evolve into illicit drugs is something we're trying to get ahead of.
Have you heard how the movie Cake is doing and what the responses are?
And why the name Cake? Am I missing something?
Well,
does cake mean something that I should know in this field?
No, well, the movie's not. It came out, I think, at about 500 theaters, so it's a pretty limited release, and I think that's actually the biggest it's going to get. I think it grossed about $1 million last week, so it's a smaller movie. I don't think the budget was any more than $10 million, so it's definitely a departure for Jennifer Aniston, who's doing these larger big blockbuster movies usually. And in the movie, the reason why it's called Cake, Anna Kendrick's character, a friend of hers in the support group who ended up killing herself, and who is someone who you probably see in the commercials, Jennifer Aniston sort of has a fixation on her. The cake is what that Anna Kendrick character, no spoiler alert here, wanted to. That was the only thing she ever wanted to do in life was bake a cake for her daughter. And so
Oh,
there's
you
sort
just
of
gave me
a
chills.
metaphor
Wow,
to it.
really.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
you know, I mean, the reason why we're doing this recovery show is really to really, it's a warning. It's something that you can still make a difference in your life, your
And a wake-up
husband's life.
call.
It's
I
a
want
wake-up
people
call.
to wake up
Yeah.
to see whether you know somebody. I mean, be alert, be awake, be aware of what's going on around you. Maybe there's somebody out there that you can help that you know. If it isn't a family member, maybe it's a neighbor, maybe
Right.
it's a school teacher. I mean, this is affecting everybody.
It's an epidemic out there. And Kyle, do you have any personal knowledge of this? Why did you take this journey?
You know, I think it's not something that's personal to me. I don't have I'm lucky to say I don't have a family member, or I know I have friends who have struggled with this, but it's not. To me, this is something that it's a public health crisis. One of the major reasons I got involved in public policy personally is because of, I think people should have access to health care, and these kinds of treatments are very important to have, but having them misused and having people abuse them it's something that threatens everybody's safety. So working in this space has been very rewarding because they do serve a purpose. I want to make sure we still have them out there for people who need them, but making sure that we're saving lives by not letting them get into the wrong hands.
Yeah, I love it. And how do we find out more about you, Kyle?
Well, you can check out our website. We have a comprehensive national strategy to reducing prescription drug abuse, and that's available online. It's CLAAD, CLAAD.org. And I hope you'll check out lockyourmeds.org as well. That's a good place for safe storage and disposal of medications.
Great
to make
name.
sure that family members and friends don't steal or don't take your medications and put them in the wrong
That's a great
hands.
name.
Yeah, thank you. Kyle, can you share our show with everyone so that we can keep getting the word out there?
Oh, you bet.
Yeah, all right. Well, thank you so much, Kyle Simon. And again, go see that movie, Cake. It's just really, it's a sobering glimpse, right, of
I
real
like
life.
that. Very
And
good.
yeah, so I love that.
Yeah.
Do we have time
for
to
sure.
hear Rob's story? A
Yeah,
little
of
bit?
course.